Thank you so much for staying with us. We are now shifting into the health and lifestyle segment this morning. We want to talk about the dynamics and the pressures that come with pregnancy and parenting. And it's the gender agenda. Yes, and we have had in the society always couples having preferences when it comes to the gender of the baby they want to have. So it's one thing to have a baby, but it's another to also discuss what gender you prefer. Sometimes, unfortunately, in some families, it has been such a big issue that people have ended up either trying and having more babies than they planned to have, or others even just walk out on the marriage to go and try elsewhere because they feel the person they are with will not give them the baby that they prefer. Those are the unfortunate realities happening on the ground. And joining me are two ladies who are going to help me unpack this very controversial subject. I'm having with me on the far right, Mehreen Farouk. Mehreen Farouk is a clinical psychologist. Asante sana for creating time. Thank you. And we also have with us Dr. Joan Okemo, obstetrician gynecologist at Aga Khan University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe I'll begin with you, Mehreen. You can tell me a bit about, you know, one would wonder, why is the gender such a big deal? Why is it such a big conversation? Let's start there.
So gender is a big conversation in terms of the idea that is associated with it. Of course, conception and birth in itself is continuation of life. But I think what happens with that is the value that we put to each gender, which is male and female. Now that, of course, is culturally determined. There are some cultures who value the male gender, there's some who don't care, male, female, and of course now there are some cultures where women bring, the female gender would bring in luck. So it really depends.
Wealth in some communities, you know. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on, here in Africa, the conversation has been around, it has had a bias towards a specific gender. I'm not going to mention because I'm trying to diversify this conversation and trying to help people move on from that space. But for a very long time, we've had a specific bias towards a specific type of gender as the babies that people would prefer, especially if you have that as a firstborn, then that's a win. I don't know whether in your side of the world and in your culture where you come from, whether that's like a big conversation or a big issue.
Of course, as much as we're transitioning from the old school of thought, but that has also been a predominant factor where the family has to be complete, where when you have both genders. So there isn't a sense of completion when you just have a certain gender, you know, like girls, boys, or both. So completion is associated with having both genders. I think where I am from, it has been a very predominant factor where for completion of the family, there has to be a certain gender within the family system. So yes, it has been predominant. However, we're hoping that we transition quicker and faster to openness,
Yeah. Actually, how dominant is it in this side of the world? You interact with families quite often. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's quite dominant. It's unfortunate because this has happened for so many generations. And I think it's just a culture that has been so stubborn for us to let go. The fact that, you know, just as Mehreen said, the value that is associated with some genders, and how the society views that gender moving forward. So men generally are seen as people who will continue the legacy and the wealth of the family, and the women will leave the family and get married off, and therefore they'll go and benefit another family. And by that extension, they are deemed as less valued because of that. And we still see that, unfortunately, up to today.
Even in this era.
Even in this era.
Even today that you're talking about gender roles having changed.
Absolutely.
And the dynamics around it, we still have the same conversations.
We still have the same conversations, the same preferences, the same frustrations in people who are caught up in situations where they're not able to bring forth male heirs.
All right.
Yeah.
Fortunately so. And then that brings me to the next question. So who has the say or the power to determine the, the gender of the baby?
I would say biology has. No one has that power.
Sometimes what I've seen happen a lot is the women carry the pressure and the weight of, number one, first of all, just having a baby. Number two, if you have babies and all of them are in a particular gender, then still it's your problem. So who has the power and...
It is biology. It's really basic science and what happens between a woman and a man. I always say that for you to have a baby, it takes a sperm and an egg. And these are two people who have no control in a lot of things that become of this baby. And therefore, the outcome of that pregnancy should also be equally shared between the man and the woman, whether it's a boy, it's a girl, whether it's an abnormal baby, it's not an abnormal baby, whatever outcome it is, it should be jointly shared between the two of them, because it's not that a woman plays a bigger role or a man plays a bigger role. It's just sort of equal roles, and the end result is just how biology plays. As we know, the men we have things called chromosomes, right? So chromosomes are like tiny instructions in the cells of human beings that will determine eventually how a person becomes. So we have those chromosomes that will determine how tall you are, how light you are, your eye color, and things like that. And we also have the sex chromosomes that determine whether you become a girl or a man. And men generally in their sperms, they have these chromosomes that now we call sex chromosomes, either being an X or a Y. And women always have an X chromosome. So when the two of them meet and fertilize, a woman will always give an X, and a man can give either an X or a Y. And it's not up to him to decide, okay,
which one.
So
which
still
one, the power is not
it's still,
on him. Yeah?
Exactly, it's not in the man either. So if a man then releases they're all being released, but if the X chromosome in the man fertilizes the X in the woman, it becomes a girl. And if it's the Y that happens to fertilize the X, then it becomes a boy. And that's not in anyone's power. It's just a random chance. Yeah.
All right. But looking at it a bit differently, because it's in some families the men that bring this pressure, then it could also be good to say that, okay, now if we are to come down to who carries the power, then it's the man, right?
Well, I think it's still unfair, because it's not it's not them who decide. They'll release the sperms, but there's so many of them, millions of them. It's a chance that one of them will eventually fertilize the egg, and it's not up to anyone to decide that, really.
But if that man reduces you to that conversation of
you shift the blame.
So now let's talk about who exactly has the power. So it becomes the man.
Let's turn the tables.
Maybe you can tell me how the pressures of childbirth and childbearing and having a baby and having the right baby affects a woman psychologically and mentally.
So we all know that pregnancy in itself is stressful. It can be stressful for a woman. We have hormonal changes. We have changes happening in the body. We have a living being growing inside the body. And then you put the pressure of, it has to be a specific gender. For women, what we've seen, if we look at it in a psychological aspect, it just creates this feeling of loss of control, and they're not able to celebrate their pregnancy. It's a beautiful thing. We have so many women who've done IVF, and the IVF has failed, but then we have women who are also just pregnant naturally, but they're not able to celebrate just because we confine them and corner them into expectations that they have no control over. So they're stressed during their pregnancies, but what we don't know is that now the babies are picking on that as well. So we have a stressed pregnancy with, a child that's picking up genetically, you know, whatever the mom feels, the baby is picking on it as well. So the whole event becomes very gloomy, and then we as therapists now get the aftermath of it. That is the peak cause of postpartum depression, because the pregnancies have not been celebrated. You know, they've been cornered. Sometimes it's not just gender, it could be 101 things. Too much work pressure, I've not been able to get my leaves, yada, yada, yada. But because the topic here is the need for a specific gender, that too has resulted in postpartum depression, which in itself now becomes major depressive disorder, just because we couldn't celebrate that. Because women in their pregnancies are vulnerable as it is. So any sort of pressure does and could lead to long-term mental health disorders, and that's unnecessary. Yeah.
There's this tendency in the African society of, I don't know whether it's right. Anytime news about childbirth is shared, the very first question, I don't know about your culture, but the very first question somebody would ask, is it a boy or a girl? There's a way, every dialect has a way of you know, doing it. But is it right?
So you see, I think what you're trying to say is now sort of destigmatizing now the gender in itself. It's a myth when we say that the community has to destigmatize a certain aspect of life. Destigmatization comes from within. Otherwise, there's no change. The key is now, how would you respond to that question? I have no control over someone asking me, is it a boy or a girl? But how am I going to respond to it? I could say, I hope it's a boy. That changes the whole dynamic. Or I could say, well, I have 2 boys and now I want a girl. Or I could say, you know what, I'm just happy that I'm pregnant. I hope the baby is healthy. And that's the game changer. So we need to understand that destigmatizing this will come from men, of course, the partners, and the pregnant women themselves. That's where the change is, yeah.
I like the third response. I hope the baby is healthy.
Right. That's what is important.
Is it a boy or a girl? I'm just happy I'm pregnant. I hope the baby is healthy. That's a good way to respond, just to avoid the unnecessary pressure that comes with it. But Daktari, in your line of work, I'm sure you interact a lot with these moments of, you know, surprise and disillusionment, and breaking the news to the couples or the mothers or the fathers about the gender of their babies. What has been like the most unfortunate experiences or encounters you've had when it comes to this gender debate?
Yeah, I would say that for most pregnant couples or even women, one of the highlights of pregnancy is the gender of the baby. So even from it's a big thing. Even from the first clinic, they would want to know, oh, so how soon can we know the gender? It's one of the big, and this is like maybe just someone has just tested positive, but still it's not even what can I do to make sure my baby is healthy, or what can I do to make sure the pregnancy is uncomplicated and have a good outcome, is how soon can I know the gender of the baby. And sometimes it could be the pressure from, I would say, society, or you know, the families you're coming from, but sometimes it's also just internal pressure from the woman herself. Women also have their own preferences, or I want a boy to be the firstborn, or I want girls, or I want boys, and all sorts of preferences. We also sometimes have men who are very supportive, but the woman is actually the one putting pressure upon herself, up to what kind of a baby they prefer or they want. So that in itself can have mixed results. If it's a woman thing, sometimes you might even find those ones who terminate the pregnancy, or they would want to terminate, or they detach from the pregnancy just because of what they have been told as the gender of the baby, you know, whether it's depending on what they wanted, really. So that detachment can happen, and others would go ahead and even try or ask for or look for ways of terminating the pregnancy. Or so sometimes
it gets that bad.
It gets that bad. Or sometimes it could be an impact on the relationship. Maybe it was the man who was putting pressure, and that would make them even leave. We have had stories of where men have not participated at all in that pregnancy, since they found out maybe you're getting another girl or you're getting another boy and they wanted a girl. So some of them actually want girls, and that has made some men walk away or just not participate or being supportive of their wives during the entire pregnancy or even during the time when baby is born.
Or they will be supportive until the day of the scan to know their gender.
Yes, and then after that they disappear. They're no longer coming to clinic.
They are no longer involved.
They're no longer involved. And even during labor and delivery, the woman will bring herself and discharge herself. And even during clinic follow-up, sometimes you'll find that the baby has just been left to the mother to take care of that situation. So there is the financial implications that come with that. There is the relationship implications, and we don't know how much it flows back to the families of how they also treat this woman and this child being someone who has been brought about and they didn't really want that gender.
And that brings me to the next question. This, let me call it the unwanted gender syndrome.
Yeah.
The child who, let me just use that for people to understand what I'm trying to bring across. The child who the family did not prefer in terms of gender. How does this affect the psychology of this child from the pregnancy season to after birth and even the family setup? Yeah.
So you see, this is an abandoned child. The level of abandonment and the sense of abandonment for this child is huge. What that does is that will affect this child's attachment style, probably generations to follow. You see how the first attachment is the family and the parents. Now you've created a sense of abandonment even before birth, so you can imagine the psychological damage. This is a neglected child, abandoned child. We can only imagine how this child will associate to the world and make meaningful relationships or not. So if we are looking at attachment styles, or when we do get clients with interpersonal issues, the first thing we say, how was your relationship with your mom? And sometimes they look at you like, what is that about? But it's all connected. The way you relate to the world is how your family related to you as a child. So it is definitely psychologically damaging. But the positive side is we can still make it very conducive for healthier attachment styles to follow within the community just by doing this. Yeah.
If I flip the coin a bit and look at the golden child, the one the family has been waiting for, sometimes they are spoiled with love and attention and all sorts of things which can be destructive. Talk about that as well.
So you see, when we have children that are cushioned, even by research, they actually come out, and then now when they're put out into the world, let's say when they go to universities, they actually develop depression and adjustment disorders more than the black sheep of the family, if I was to say, because they just don't know how to handle themselves outside. Of course, it's always good to have that golden child. We would wish all our children,
the only daughter,
yeah, we would,
and over provided for.
And then come 25, 26, and they can really surprise you with, I have depression, I went to uni, I have an adjustment disorder. And when you look at their childhood, it's a perfect childhood, very protected. So you wonder, why is this? Adjustment disorder is when you develop symptoms because you're not able to adjust to a new situation. So let's just create a balance. We don't want the black sheep and the golden child. As long as we have something in between and they're healthy and happy, we're good to go. Yeah.
Daktari, the people who've gone to the extremes of having multiple children, they planned to have only 2. They have 13 or 10 who are the same gender, and they're still not giving up. I mean, talk to us about the realities of this and whether there's a downside.
Definitely, it's a common thing. And you'd find someone has a line of boys or a line of girls, and then they're really just trying and hoping with every pregnancy that nature will have mercy and bring forth the baby that they want. But unfortunately, when it comes to fertilization, it's not dependent on your past, the past babies and the kind of gender that you had previously, so that now, if you got boys, there's a higher chance of girls and vice versa. It's each pregnancy is an independent situation or occurrence in itself, and it's just a flip of the coin. It could be a girl, it could be a boy. And yes, we have a lot of people who would try and try and try for many, many times, or even you'll find even some who really just do a very short interpregnancy interval because they were not happy with that one and they want to try again as soon as possible to get into the next and see whether what that will be. Yeah. So sometimes you end up with a family larger than you expected, and sometimes maybe eventually you may get that desired gender, but for most, it doesn't really happen. So you end up with a lot of babies of the same gender that you really didn't really want, most of them. So you have a big family size, and we know the impact of that economically and even just psychologically and availability in terms of parents, how you show up for your children. If you have, the more you have, the more sometimes the stress is and the stretch on you as a person or as a couple, and therefore you're not able to really meet the individual needs of all these children, especially if you really do want them because you are really looking for this particular gender. So you also have that resentment, or I really do want these kids, but they're here and they're your responsibility and you have to take care of them. So there is that impact that comes with that. But also health-wise, we have women, for example, who have had cesarean sections, and for cesarean sections, these days we can do quite a number, but the more you do it, the more the issues or complications may arise. And therefore you find people who really just disregard all those issues and complications that you raise with them, and they just keep trying and trying and trying. And even for normal deliveries, or sometimes it could be even underlying medical conditions. There are people who get stressful and crazy pregnancies, complicated, and we always sometimes advise them, maybe it's not very wise for you to be pregnant again, but they try and try and try, despite the situation and the challenges that they could face or they continue to face, because they're really looking for this particular goal. So it can be quite dangerous.
Unfortunately, sometimes it's coming from pressure, from society, from maybe the partner they are with, and they want a specific gender, and health-wise, this woman has not been given the green light to be pregnant again.
Absolutely.
But because of pressure,
they keep trying.
They keep trying, and this can come with very dire consequences. Still on health, you talked about spacing. Just enlighten us a bit about the dangers of that quick, you gave birth, probably how long should you, run me through that.
So the recommendation is really you should space your babies at least 2 years. Sometimes it happens sooner. 18 months could be forgivable, it's still okay. So 18 months to 24 months is still okay. But then you find women who will get pregnant even when they're still breastfeeding the first baby. They have not even gotten to 6 months. They have not even healed well or recovered well. And that in itself can cause problems with both the baby who is very young and the pregnancy itself. The baby who is very young may be abandoned because sometimes they can't even breastfeed. The attention, maybe the mother, the pregnancy is a bit difficult and they just can't pay attention to the small baby anymore. And it's still a baby. It's still a baby who needs help and guidance and provision and protection from their mom. But the mom is now pregnant with someone else and they're focusing on that pregnancy for one reason or another. And for the unborn baby, also just that short interpregnancy period can sometimes make them, because the mother maybe has not recovered fully even in terms of nutritional recovery from the pregnancy and childbirth process, they might end up being very small, low birth weight babies, preterm babies being born and things like that.
Mihirina, I wanted to hear your thought on the same question I asked Daktari on the quest for the preferred gender, and you end up having many babies. She has talked about the health aspect. Probably I'm keen on even getting your thoughts on how this, what are the dynamics of this and how it affects the couple and the family. You're trying to have the right gender and you end up having more children than you had planned for.
So you see, when you have a large family, let's say you're saying 11, 13 kids, something or someone has got to be neglected. You know, you have 13 kids, there is one child or maybe two that is definitely being neglected. What we're not looking at here is now the marriage. You know, you have 13 kids. What kind of a relationship are you going to build, or will you even have time to build that bond with your spouse? So a lot of the times we have in larger families, we do have kids that are neglected. Of course, it's not by choice or it's not out of malice, but it's just capacity. The mothers don't have that much capacity to look after 13 kids or 11 kids. Then marriages are neglected, where the focus is so much on, like she mentioned, the economical aspect. I need to fend more, I need to find other means to earn, and the mum is a mum 24/7. So the marriages are also being neglected. So those are some of the byproducts of large families, yeah.
So in the underlying issues would be in your quest to have the right gender, you could bring in other challenges, other aspects like the financial strain, the strain on the marriage, which may lead to problems between the couples, the failed parenting, you know, because children do not have that level of attention that they need for their upbringing from their parents. So just a cocktail of other challenges that come and tie into this one issue of trying to find the right child, yeah?
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about, you know, the myths and misconceptions, Daktari, when it comes to the boy or the girl conversation. I don't know whether, kwa society you hear sometimes they say, you look like you will have a girl. You look like, can you see? Is it something you can see?
No, you can't.
And also there's more myths and misconceptions that you've had out there.
Yeah, so I think it's always that quest of we want to know as soon as you can whether it's a boy or a girl. And sometimes that's possible, sometimes that's not possible, depending on a lot of things. So yes, we have people who will try and think about signs and symptoms that would make them understand whether what they're expecting is a boy or a girl. And some of them have looked at the heart rate of the baby. So even when you're checking the heart rate, they'll ask, what is the rate? What is the rate? Is it very high or is it very low? It still confuses me today whether they think if it's high, it's a boy or whether it's a girl.
I was hoping
yeah, but it doesn't matter because the heart rate of a baby generally varies according to the fetal. Now, this is a baby in the woman's womb. We call it a fetus. It varies with the baby sometimes, whether they're sleeping, whether they're active, whether they're just chilling, because they're humans and they do lots of things in the womb. They're just not in a same position all the time. And that will cause the heart rate to fluctuate generally between 110 to 160. And that range is so wide. And sometimes you'll come and it's 120, sometimes you'll come and it's 130, sometimes it's 140 or 150. It does not tell anything other than the baby. No, it doesn't.
You can hear, you know, so this has to be a boy. They're very active.
Right? It doesn't, it's a footballer, you know.
This has to be a boy.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. All it tells you is whether the baby is okay or not. It doesn't give any information other than that about gender of the baby. Others would go with what they're craving. Like if you crave salty foods, you're expecting a boy. If you crave sweet things, it's a girl. Again, pregnancy cravings are really just up to the pregnancy and the woman. It's not affected by the baby's gender. How does the baby's gender even affect what kind of foods that you desire? It doesn't really have that implication at all. So some people look at that and they're completely convinced about it, all the symptoms that they get during pregnancy. So morning sickness, if it's too much, sometimes people would be really convinced that it's a girl. And if it's too little, then it's probably a boy. Or if generally the pregnancy is low-key, doesn't have any issues, maybe it's a boy. And if it's dramatic, it's a girl. Again, that is really not true because it varies again from person to person. You'll find the same woman having similar symptoms for all her babies, whether they're boys or girls, and vice versa, or sometimes even the reverse can happen. So again, that is just how the body adjusts to pregnancy, the hormones that take place, and it's independent in every pregnancy. They're different. It doesn't mean much.
It doesn't say anything.
No, it doesn't mean much.
If a woman wants to look good, wants to look beautiful while pregnant, it doesn't mean she is having a girl.
Exactly, it doesn't mean. And some people actually think otherwise. A girl will steal your beauty, and you will now have a lot of pimples, and your nose will be bigger. You know, right? Because the girl is stealing your beauty because she wants to look beautiful. Yeah. So again, All those are just, it doesn't mean anything.
All right,
yeah.
we've heard that from the doctor herself.
Yeah.
So the only way to know is if you go for the scan.
If you go for the scan, or sometimes, actually these days you can do something called cell-free DNA, where they test the DNA, they look for the fetal fragments of fetal DNA in the mother, and they can tell whether it's XY or XX, and you can determine this as early as 10 weeks, but of course it's expensive.
All right.
So for majority of the people, and what is available for across many places, whether it's low or high income, is the scan.
Mm-hmm. There are some couples who prefer the surprise.
Yeah.
Who don't want to know the gender.
Who don't want to know the gender. But
one thing you should let us know, is it a must that when you go for this, there's a critical scan that you have to go through?
Yeah.
Is it a must that they must tell you the gender, first of all? And for those who don't want to know, is it okay? It's
up to the couple to decide whether they want to know or not. Some people don't want to know, as you say, they want to know it at the time of birth. And there are those ones who have been keen for it from the time of conception or even before they conceived. They want to know about it. So it's up to the couple to decide. Medically, we don't have any requirement or obligation to tell you whether you have a boy or a girl. In fact, these days now, because of the surprise or the way people want to break the news, they want a big party, and so someone would
to reveal gender. We've really morphed.
Yes, absolutely. So some will not want you to tell them at that particular time. Write in a paper, give a friend, put in an envelope, do blah 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 things, so that they want to do this particular party. So even sonographers this day would really just wait until you give them the clue on what you want them to do or to tell them about the gender thing. So we'll not just go ahead and spill it out, because some people will be offended because you have broken their plans of how they wanted to.
Of the surprise.
Exactly. Already want to know about it, and you say. So we take caution because of all these things that are happening around us.
The gender reveals have become quite a big thing.
It's a party. It's an event.
Would you advise, is it a good thing to know, in terms of, in as much as others prefer not to know, but does it help knowing the gender early enough?
It really depends. It really depends. Now that's a personal preference and a personal choice. Some people want to plan. Some people don't like the element of surprise. Some people like structure. I don't want to find out on the. It really. Some people actually don't even know that they have a choice. So there's. I'm assuming that if they go for scans, they think it's just part of that I'm supposed to know.
That's why I asked her. Is it a must that you must be told, or is there an option of asking, don't tell me?
So maybe a lot of the people may not know that. But to answer your question, whether it makes any difference, I think it's really a personal choice. As much as the element of surprise and delay works for some couples, there's some couples and some others who like structure. It's okay to have a personal preference, that okay, maybe, I hope it's, but to a point where it's making the pregnancy chaotic and it's just creating, and just you're labeling yourself really, oh gosh, another girl. But if it's a preference, just because you like structure and you just want to know, or your mom asked, or it's absolutely fine. It doesn't make much of a difference.
I like what you said about it's for planning purposes. It can help because you're budgeting, you want to start buying things, and it could help. But actually, there are moments where I don't know what usually happens. You're told you're expecting a girl, and then on the day of birth, you're having a boy. You bought all these pink things. You're wondering what you're going to do.
But why do we buy pink and blue, really?
I don't know what happens.
What happens if a boy wears pink? I don't know. Well, that question always comes up whenever now a person is informed, especially if they really want that gender, they don't want it to change, and it's almost like a fingers crossed. Will it really change? Is this it? Can we confirm? But it never changes. Really, it just depends with I always say it depends with the person who did the scan, with whether they were able to see it or not. If they were able to visualize it and they're very certain, it doesn't change. A baby will be a boy or a girl. So it's just a matter of detecting that in the right way. And And that depends on the skill of the person doing the ultrasound scan. It depends on the machine. Sometimes some machines are very low and others are very good quality. It depends on the position of the baby during the time for the scan. Some babies will just close their legs and you cannot do anything to make them open up and reveal. And there's nothing you can do about it, other than maybe try another time. So it depends on some of those factors. But if the sonographer has seen it, and some these days will even show you or look at this is exactly, it really doesn't change. Yeah.
So this thing of the baby could have been switched.
No.
Maybe there could have been something that happened. No. These are just myths.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right. If we look at how children are brought up, how do you run a parent through the change of mindset? A parent who had anticipated a specific gender and now they are going to have a gender that they didn't prefer. As a therapist, how do you run this parent through the process of making sure that this child will get the best upbringing? Because they're having challenges and navigating and understanding the reality that they're facing.
So, of course, first there has to be a level of acceptance. We will debrief them and they will vent and be upset. It's almost as if they're grieving the pregnancy before it's even happened. So you see a lot of symptoms of grief, loss, bereavement, and you're wondering, but you're still pregnant and it's a healthy pregnancy. So a lot of symptoms come up and we don't neglect them. We do address them in the session. After that comes the aspect of acceptance. So fine, we've grieved, let's move on, and then there's that period of let's accept the pregnancy. And then we look at, we do a lot of reality therapy as well. Now, reality therapy is where you give them the facts, so this baby is coming, you're having this baby, you've had, let's say, 4 girls, how are we going to address this without now you getting depressed? Because remember, in your 3rd pregnancy, you also had postpartum depression. So we do, after a period of managing symptoms that are very grief, loss, bereavement, we have acceptance, then we do sort of give them tough love in terms of reality therapy. And they respond well to it. As much as there's a lot of disappointment, we do address and psychoeducate them, and that is now where we bring now the XX and XY, and I feel like I'm a gynecologist, but we do
Most of them don't know this until they hear it for the very first time?
No, most of them would even say, wait, let me Google this if you're right, and then, oh yeah. So we psychoeducate them. Sometimes we even say, I'm just seeing you coming in for the sessions. What about your partner? Do you think that maybe he can come in one of the sessions? Because we're doing 50% of the job. We're educating and empowering the female, but then what about the male? You know what I mean? So that's now the general trend that we would use for pregnancies that went haywire in terms of gender.
But I'm trying to imagine how that plays out, because taking such a person through, or let me call them a patient who comes and they're seeking the services of a therapist, taking them through something that is difficult. A difficult season is one thing, and then you begin the healing, and then you get well and you get to a space where this person can now function without that issue they were going through really affecting them. But in this context, they go through it, they come, you walk them through it, they accept their reality, they heal, and then they try again, and then they are back to point zero.
So what
maybe even 4 times or 5. Yeah,
it's it's another dip.
Yeah,
so what we highlight that, that. It's futuristic therapy as well, where we say that fine, we've addressed this now. What are your plans for the future? Do you want to try again? Sometimes they say, no, not now. We don't want to. And then I say, just hypothetically, let's say the contraceptive didn't work and you do decide to get pregnant, and you do get pregnant, and you find out that it's this particular gender. how are you going to respond to that? Yes. So we do create a support protective network because we have anticipated that there's so many patients who do come back, which is a relapse now that we call. So we plan for those as well, yes.
I didn't know there is something like relapse in pregnancy. I told you we learn every day on this show, and that's a new one, and it's a good direction, you know, just it's interesting to know that you take that futuristic direction with someone. No, if you know that they stand a risk of going through the same situation in the future, so the counseling and the therapy session begins before the actual crisis. Dr. We've seen others who go to the extreme of trying elsewhere. You've had 7 children. I love your body language. So you've had 7 children with one woman, and then you decide as the mzee of the home, you are not giving me the gender that I desire. Let me go and try, you know, a daughter from another village, maybe. They will give me the gender that I prefer. Talk to me about the odds. Is it possible that maybe it's this woman that didn't give you the right gender, so another can?
Again, it's not. It's really not, because it doesn't matter who you're trying to have a baby with. The biology is the same. It's a chance. It's a chance occurrence. It's a random occurrence, whether it's with person A or person B or person C or person D. And sometimes some people actually do that, and they get the desired gender, and it's like, yeah, see, she was the problem, which sort of validates their action, unfortunately.
Youth, as a man, as a young man,
yeah,
a boy.
You know, with someone else, how come? But it's all just chance occurrences. And it's just like, I always say, chance occurrence is like asking yourself, if I open this door, what are the chances that I see someone wearing yellow? You might or you might not. You know, and that is the same thing that would happen with having trying with someone else and someone else and someone else. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it may not work, but it's all just a random chance occurrence. It's not up to either of the parties that it will work or it will not work.
You know, we've talked about women, but do men also suffer emotional and mental torture from having a baby whose gender they did not prefer, and how are they impacted?
You know, that's a very good question. First of all, do those men even show up for therapy? Yeah, that's now another. Usually, for a man to come in for help for something that is very biological, let's say I'm only having girls and I'm stressed that I'm not having this gender, is very limited. For them to reach out for something like that, for whatever reason, is rare. But that is where we play the role of, I'm very inclusive with men. Why don't you bring the men in? They'll say no once, twice, thrice. By the time you're in the 5th session and they probably see the wife thriving again, they do show up, and that is when we know I have 1 hour with this guy, let's make the most of it. But yes, for those who do show up, 100%, there's a lot of embarrassment, there's a lot of helplessness. And of course, that's when we have, especially if you have a male that's a problem solver, because they're always using their prefrontal cortex, that is now when they're thinking plan B. Maybe I need to find another village kind of a situation. So you really tap it there that, you know, and there are options. We do give them options in terms of, instead of doing that, what can you do to make it work here? And they're open, but it's limited, yeah. Yeah.
What do you tell men who subject their women to this type of pressure to have the right child, the right gender? And also, as you run us through that, how do you bring men on board in the pregnancy journey? Because kitambo, those days, pregnancy was a woman's affair. Even the clinics. So men didn't know much about the going-ons.
Yeah.
But these days, I'm seeing the space changing. So maybe you could talk to me about some things that you're trying and adopting as experts in this area.
You're right. I think the scenes are changing a bit, with men becoming a bit more involved, but still very few. Still very few, because like a clinic, when a woman is pregnant for 9 months, well, there are so many visits that they'll have with the doctor. But then a man, sometimes you have those ones who are dedicated and they'll come with their women in every visit. But then there are those ones who will never show up at all, regardless of what you say. And sometimes it's because maybe they don't live around, maybe they work in a different place, and they just can't. Or the dynamics of work. Again, we're in Nairobi, sometimes getting off as a man is a bit hard because you are not pregnant. You know, a woman can say to their boss, have a clinic they are pregnant, you can see it, you take an off. But a man, to just say, oh, I'm taking my wife to a clinic, even your boss will be like, wait, are you serious? You know? So we don't also have that support even in the employment sector.
So they'll be like, I hope she's okay.
Right?
Like,
is it an emergency?
To the hospital,
there is a problem. It can't just be a normal clinic visit. So there is that limitation that men have. And even in situations, for example, where a woman is sick, I've had men who have asked me, okay, I need to be here with her, can I also get an off? But you can't write an off for them. So they have that limitation for those who may still want, but they don't show up. But there's a lot of them who just are not, they're just not willing. They'll support you, they'll provide the transport, they'll provide the money for the clinic, make sure everything is provided for, but they're not showing up. And I don't know why. I don't know why some are in that space and others are showing up more, but the trends are changing and we see a bit more of men showing up. So it's a good scenario to just have that discussion with them. I think my main emphasis is usually that at the end of the day, you really want a healthy outcome for both the mom and the baby. It doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl. You might really look forward to this particular boy, and then they come up and they have issues. And then now you have a whole load of problems to carry your entire life. At the end of, and that could happen also for girl child as well. It's not just limited to men. So at the end of the day, my priority and what I really want to pass the message to my patients is that we need a healthy pregnancy. That's what we are trying everything possible with these follow-ups and everything to make sure that we get that outcome. And that's the most important thing. A healthy human being is productive, brings happiness and joy around compared to taking care of someone who has issues, regardless of the gender. It doesn't really matter.
All right, so Dr. there could be somebody watching and they are saying, Doc, I want a girl. Doc, I want a boy. That is their desire. We've had rumors and myths of how you can actually get the gender that you want. Talk to us. What are the alternatives?
Well, that question comes up a lot, and just we were having a discussion earlier. People have come to the clinic, even in the preconception period, where they really want you to lay down the plan for them on how they are going step by step. Tell me they have a notebook and
before. So this is they plan. They are
planning. You know, tell me what it can be. I know it can be done. You just tell me. I need clarity.
Can it be done fast?
It cannot be done.
Let's begin there.
It cannot be, and that's usually a disappointment.
There are no specific days, specific things, specific foods. You know.
No, unfortunately, no. And you can see the disillusionment in them, and even in fact, some of them will even think, maybe let me seek a second opinion from somewhere else, because the myths are so much, and some people will swear by it. Oh, me, I really tried this one, and it worked out. That's why I have a boy, or that's why I have a girl. And there are so many myths around it. There's around ovulation time, timing, like having sex during the time of the day of ovulation. You'll get a boy because the Y chromosome is lighter and it seems faster, so it can really fertilize the egg that is now has just been released.
Is it true?
It's not true.
It's a myth.
It's a myth, or having sex earlier now because the Y ones, they say, or the rumor is that they're lighter and therefore they have a shorter lifespan, and therefore they also disappear faster compared to the X chromosome, and therefore if you had sex earlier before ovulation, then the X will be still the one surviving, and then you end up with a girl. Again, the lifespan is the same for both X and Y. They don't have different lifespans, so it's just a myth. There is the myth about sex positions and positions that may make it better for you to get a girl and a boy. The depth of penetration during sex, and even diet. Some people talk about foods that are rich in calcium and magnesium, giving you a girl, and that will be things like dairies and things that will have a lot of potassium and sodium, giving you a boy, so lots of meat and bananas, but again, just meats.
It's a myth. I was waiting for that because somebody could be following and taking notes. Yeah,
it's
I was waiting for that. We've run out of time, and I want us to just wind up this conversation. Marine, maybe what will be your clarion call going forward? We want to get out of that space of thinking boy, girl. We just want to appreciate the gift of having a baby. How do we get there? Just talk to people who could be watching you this morning and help us change our mind.
It starts from the individual. It's that, like I said, you cannot destigmatize a concept unless you destigmatize yourself. And that is where the change is. As much as it's really how you would respond to a question like, is it a boy or a girl? I don't know. It's a healthy pregnancy, and that's a game changer. From within, instead of constantly expecting society to change. Society will change, but it starts from you first.
All right, Dr.
I would just say what I said earlier. Reproductive outcomes are shared. It takes two to tango. And therefore, having the woman be blamed solely for everything that happens in pregnancy or goes on in pregnancy is just completely unfair. There are no two ways about it. It's completely unfair because it's not up to her, it's not up to the man. It's a biology that takes place. It's nature taking its course and just letting things happen. And therefore, own the outcome jointly, both of you.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Me, I just would like to say, no baby is a mistake. And if you think you have the wrong baby, try talk to people who are trying for a child.
Absolutely.
There are people who are trying for a child and they've not been able to be at that space where they can even have one, and they have stories they can share with you that may change your mind. If you think you have the wrong baby, talk to those people that will tell you stories that will give you that heart of just saying thank you that you have. It could be girls, it could be boys. Everybody was created for a purpose, so just allow them thrive and bring them up in the best way that you can as a parent. Thank you so much for creating time this morning. My panel, Dr. Joanne Okemo, obstetrician, gynecologist, Aga Khan University Hospital, Marine Farouk, clinical psychologist. Also, thank you for creating time for us this particular morning. And it's a wrap. Thank you for watching Daybreak. Keep watching Citizen TV. There's still a lot that we have lined up for you.